Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It's the Produce Moms Podcast, and it's not January at the Produce Moms Podcast until we bring on Brittain Ladd. So Brittain Ladd, this is one of our most popular episodes of the year every year for the last several years. And we are going to talk about all sorts of trends, insights, forecasts, and there's, in my opinion, no one better positioned to do this than Brittain Ladd. He is someone that I originally interacted with just by following along with what he has to say and the content that he shares on LinkedIn. He's also formerly been a contributor at Forbes and often appears in the media as a subject matter expert as it relates to the grocery retail industry, logistics, the global grocery retail, logistics, robotics, fulfillment. I could go on and on. He is truly a genius on some of these topics. So I am really thrilled to have him back. Brittain, welcome back to the Produce Moms Podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here. I always enjoy being on the show. And when it gets to be January, I know we're going to do this, and I always look forward to it.
Me too. Thank you. And thank you so much for sharing your time with us. I know it's valuable. For folks that aren't familiar with your story, I usually incorporate it into my intro remarks, but I think that the big golden goose egg on your portfolio, despite everything you do, it has to be that you were the executive that made the recommendation for Amazon to acquire Whole Foods. It certainly is what resonates strongly with so many of the folks in the fresh produce industry that I work with. But tell us more about your background.
So in regards to that, I was completing a third master's in 2013, and I wrote a global research report on retail in the grocery industry. And I happened to choose to do analysis of Amazon and their grocery business. And I was very critical of them. And in my report, I recommended that Amazon should acquire Whole Foods. And I sent copies of the research paper to multiple executives at Whole Foods, and they hated it. They absolutely hated it. They hated it so much that a senior executive, and I never use the names of these people because I don't want to embarrass them, but he called me and he says, look, I got to be honest with you, you really need to delete this from this paper or people are just going to laugh at you for decades. And I said, thank you for the advice and everything, but I didn't change anything because I knew I was 100% correct.
Yeah.
And when Amazon hired me in 2015, I posted that paper on LinkedIn. And it immediately became popular. And the New York Times found it and they started writing about it. And so I did not make the final decision inside Amazon to acquire Whole Foods. What I did was make the argument to Amazon before I joined and while I was at Amazon that they should do it.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people say I should get the credit for it, but it's irrelevant to me for getting the credit. What I always appreciated is that Amazon did it. And that really did put Amazon in a unique position. And as I stated in 2017, I remain convinced that between 2030 and 2035, Amazon will become the largest grocery retailer by sales in the United States, taking over where Walmart is. Walmart's number one with about 24% market share today.
Yeah. Undoubtedly, regardless of how and who and the why, when that acquisition happened, that was the biggest thunderclap transformative moment in the history of grocery retail, as far as I'm concerned. It changed everything. Almost all my groceries I now buy at Walmart. And the reason I buy them at Walmart is because they do Walmart in home and they have less shorts than other people that do the delivery. And so for me, it's a convenience thing. It's a price thing. I've got 2 teenage boys. We eat a ton of food in this house. But when you and I were doing this episode 3 years ago, that's not where I was doing the most of my grocery shopping. Most of my grocery shopping was done at the nearest grocer to my home, which is Kroger. I have become a Walmart loyalist over the last 3 years, but I absolutely, as someone who keeps an eye on the industry, I can totally get behind what you're saying with 2030, 2035. We'll have maybe a new leader. They're all leaders, but the new pinnacle of the industry, I could totally see that, Brittain.
Early 2025, I broke this story. I said, Amazon's going to open up a supercenter.
Yeah.
And a lot of people said, no, it'll never happen. It's happening. They're building it in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And it'll be the first supercenter by Amazon. And the reason why Amazon's building that supercenter is so that they can have a Whole Foods and a traditional grocery retailer under the same roof.
Yeah.
And so you can buy all of the healthy Whole Foods, fruits and vegetables, but you can also walk across an aisle and buy your Cheetos and Coke and Tide and Pepsi and all that other stuff as well. And it's very important that Amazon does that, because the thing that I've always criticized Amazon about when it comes to Whole Foods is that Amazon failed to understand that owning Whole Foods meant they had to change the format of Whole Foods. Because Amazon will never grow as a grocery retailer if they maintain that Whole Foods doesn't sell products with unnatural ingredients. And what I've always stated to Amazon is that you simply carve out a section inside Whole Foods called Amazon Grocery. And when customers walk in there, that's where the Tide and Coke and Pepsi and all that other stuff will be. And a lot of people at Whole Foods don't want to do that. But the challenge is they have to do it, and here's why. 97% of all Whole Foods customers leave the store to go to Walmart and Kroger and other competitors to finish their grocery shopping. Whole Foods is losing $10 billion a year in lost sales. Wow. So as someone who owns Whole Foods, Amazon can't ignore that. And that's why Amazon's looking at all kinds of different options for how to basically give the customer an opportunity to not have to leave the store to find what they need. And several Whole Foods stores, they've installed automated micro-fulfillment centers. The challenge for that is they're super expensive, between $11 and $15 million each. Cost about $2 million a year to run them. Wow. So if you looked at putting those in every Whole Foods store, that's $6 billion you would have to spend to just simply put a robot in a back room to fulfill orders for Coke, Tide, Pepsi, and everything. It's a charade. You basically are spending $6 billion to pretend that Whole Foods isn't selling products with unnatural ingredients. The customer just isn't seeing them physically in the store. So Amazon knows they're going to have to fix that. And so it's going to be an interesting story to see. So what really happens to Whole Foods in the coming years? How does that format change?
Yeah, definitely. Very interesting. We've had a lot of shakeups in the grocery business. There's been a CEO out at Kroger. There's been Doug McMillon has announced that he's done at Walmart. There's a transition there. Since we're talking about on the top, let's talk about the C class in grocery retail. Any insights that you'd like to share on what's going on?
Well, so the thing that's going on with Kroger is they're falling apart. People don't understand how bad Kroger really is. Kroger has so many things that are wrong with it today. And that's because primarily the former CEO, frankly, didn't do a very good job. And when he left, that really opened up the door for other executives within Kroger to get involved and really look around and see what's going on. Now, Kroger is searching for a new CEO. I believe that there are two leading candidates. I recommended to Kroger several times in 2025 who they should hire. I gave them the name of 6 candidates. If any of those 6 are hired, Kroger is going to become a much better company. I believe that the 2 favorites should be Judith McKenna. Judith McKenna's non-compete with Amazon runs out January 31st. Oh, wow. And since Kroger has not named a new CEO, I believe they're waiting for her non-compete to expire, and then they're going to announce it. So I won't be surprised if Judith McKenna, a former executive of Walmart, is named the next CEO of Kroger. And if she isn't named, then my favorite would be Greg Ferran. And Greg Ferran is who's considered to be the person who really turned around Walmart as a company and really put Walmart on the path to becoming a leader in groceries. Kroger needs to do something like that. And that CEO, whether it's Judith or Greg or any of the other candidates I named, they're going to have to come in and really clean house at Kroger. They're going to have to fire some of the senior executives. They're really going to have to get aggressive and fix the problems, because Rodney McMullen, the former CEO, had been the CEO for 12 years. And he basically ran a fiefdom. He did not act as a CEO. So there's all kinds of things that are broken at Kroger. The other thing is that Publix, which is based in Florida, they've expanded outside of Florida. And in the states that they've expanded to, they're crushing Kroger. So Kroger has a lot of competition now. They have increased competition from Publix. Walmart's doing a fabulous job. Amazon's becoming more aggressive. So Kroger, which is the #1 standalone grocery retailer, they're almost about to be overtaken even by Costco. And so Kroger's really in a tough position. And so that's why I think the word to best describe what's going to happen at Kroger this year and certainly through the next couple of years is disruption, because they've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I hope for the success. They have a huge role here in Indiana. I'm hopeful for it. What are your thoughts on McMillan? I love him. I think he's one of the best leaders that I've within the industry. I love him.
He is. And the thing that I've always written, so clear back in 2016, actually 2014, I started to really pay attention to what Doug was doing, and I was watching some of his videos as he's speaking.
Yeah.
And I came to the conclusion in 2014, and I first wrote about it in 2016. And I wrote an article in 2016, and my argument was this. If Doug McMillan retires by 2025, no later than the end of 2025, I said he will run for president of the United States.
Yeah.
And I believe he will run for president in 2028 to 2032. I believe his best option is to run for president in 2028. And he did. He has retired in 2025. He didn't have to do that. He could have easily stayed till 2026 or 2027. I'm convinced he retired in 2025 so that he could put his platform together and his team to make a potential run for president in 2028. And the reason why I think he should be someone looked at who honestly could be a favorite is because we're in a period where from 2016 to 2020 to 2024 to 2028, there's been a lot of chaos, a lot of disruption, a lot of partisanship. And I believe the closer we get to 2028, the more people are going to say, you know what, we're tired of the partisanship. We're tired of being divided. And what we are looking for is a stabilizing force. We're looking for a candidate to stabilize the United States. Yeah. And I think Doug McMillan can make the argument there's nobody who can do this better than me, because I ran the world's largest company, larger than the federal government, which is Walmart.
Yeah.
And I have global business experience. I ran operations in India and China. I've worked with every type of individual there is, Democrat and Republican and independent. I worked with all kinds of people. I worked with global leaders, world leaders. I know the military. And I think Doug could come out and in that Southern charm of his, basically make the argument that I should be your next president. And I think that it's absolutely possible that if he truly does run, I'm going to watch him very closely. Yeah. And I think he has a tremendous opportunity to become the next president of the United States. I think 2028 is his better option only because I look at some of the Republican candidates, J.D. Vance and so forth. I don't know if they're going to be that exciting. Could either of them win? Absolutely. Should a Republican candidate be favored based on who the Democrats could put up against a Republican? Absolutely. But if Doug McMillan is the Democrat, and the reason why I say that is the way that I've heard Doug speak, the comments that I've read he's made, he's never publicly said he's a Democrat or Republican. Yeah. I believe he is a Democrat, a moderate Democrat, simply based on how he has been the CEO at Walmart and the way he interacts with people. He's more of a calming influence. And he's like a young Bill Clinton in a way. Somebody who has this ability to disarm people and bring them on and have them support him. And so if he is the candidate, when I say, imagine Doug McMillan and J.D. Vance on stage, or Doug McMillan and Tulsi Gabbard on stage, I look at that and say, you know what? Doug McMillan's going to look like the adult in the room, and he's the one who's going to look like the leader. So I think it's going to be fascinating to watch how this really turns out. But yeah, I think Doug absolutely, if he chooses to run, he absolutely should be considered a favorite.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And I will definitely be keeping an eye on it. And I could totally see him running. He is a great leader. We know that. He was a great leader and did great things at Walmart. I go back to, remember during COVID when all of the retail leaders would come to the Rose Garden and give remarks alongside the president to the American people. His remarks during those moments really left an impression on me. It felt like he was very humble, very approachable. He's just so poised for the moment, in my opinion. Keeping an eye on it. Yeah.
He is. And here's the other thing that I've written about Doug, and I don't think he appreciated it. But what I stated is you don't become the youngest CEO of Walmart without being a political animal. And so Doug understands politics, and he knew how to embrace it at a very young age to put him in a position to where he would be selected over candidates within Walmart who had many more years of tenure in the company, much more experience. But Doug was able to convince the board of directors he was the best candidate. And I think he has mastered that skill. And he's worked very closely with multiple political presidential administrations and state senators and House of Representative members. He knows the game. He's learned it well. So I'm really watching this closely. And if he does decide, I'll be the least surprised person in the United States if he chooses to run.
Let's shift gears. Let's talk AI and how it's changing, obviously, the world, but how's it changing the way that consumers and all of us interact with food and grocery retail and everything?
So it's quite interesting. So I work with a lot of AI companies, and I was one of the first people to write about AI. I started writing about agentic AI and super intelligence years ago. And so now what we've seen over just the last couple of days is every retailer is saying how they've partnered with Google and Google Gemini on agentic AI. And that simply means that there is an AI agent that could shop for you, that could shop for me, that you're not going to a website and selecting your groceries and click, choosing things from a list. Basically, the AI agent says, Brittain, I know exactly what you want. You only eat chicken, rice. You only eat certain types of vegetables. And these are your protein powders and things that you like. And I know, based on how much you eat, you're pretty much going to be coming up for a new order. Would you like me to order these products? Yes or no? Yeah. And I could say yes. Eventually, what happens is that for you and your family and other people, and the agentic AI agent will say, I'm just going to do your grocery shopping for you. I'm going to crawl through all these different websites, and I'm going to find you the best deal, and I'm going to find you the products that you absolutely want. I'm going to make sure there's no substitutions, and you no longer have to think about grocery shopping. The groceries just appear. And so that's really what the goal is for agentic. Now, the problem is this. The people who run these AI companies have a bad habit of assuming everyone wants that type of experience. And they don't, because everybody's life doesn't run as smoothly as that, to where you could just simply outsource your grocery shopping. And there are people who do like to go to a grocery store, and there are people who really do enjoy the grocery shopping experience, especially when it comes to fruits and vegetables. Yeah. Years ago, I coined the term inspect and select. People like to inspect the fruit before they select it. Look at the dairy for the date on the perishable product to inspect it before they select it. And so I think that agentic AI will certainly create a new way of shopping. But do I think that it's immediately going to have an impact? No, I don't. I think this is going to take some time.
Yeah.
The real impact, though, and I started writing about this 3 years ago. And again, the reaction was, you're an idiot, Brittain. This is never going to happen. People like to say that a lot about me. Oh, Brittain, you're an idiot. It's never going to happen. But the argument I made 3 years ago was that what everyone's failing to understand is that AI isn't going to be the disruptor in grocery. It's Tesla. It's going to be the automotive company that can release a full self-driving vehicle. And the reason for that is this. For those individuals who will own a Tesla and another automobile that has full self-driving capability, what they're going to be able to do is they simply say, the car does my shopping. Meaning that an agentic AI agent or the customer itself will choose the groceries, and they simply dispatch their car to drive to the retailer, and the retailer comes out and puts the groceries in that car. But that car then announces, hi, I'm Brittain's Tesla, and I'm going to be driving to this Kroger or this Walmart to pick up my groceries, and would anyone like me to pick up anything else for them? And people are going to say, yes, I'd love it if you could stop by Chipotle and pick up this order for me. And I have these groceries I'd like you to pick up as well. And so now that car is not only picking up my groceries, but it's also generating income for me. And that's going to create an entirely new way of people and how they shop. And it's going to change how logistics are done. And so a company that I'm working with, and they don't want me to use their name, but they reached out to me after reading that, and they created this capability to where they want to be the company that manages all of those full self-driving cars that will be pulling in to McDonald's and Chipotle,
Yeah.
pulling into a grocery store, and then that the people are bringing out the groceries and putting it in the car, and then the car starts making the delivery itself. The car would pull into your driveway, you'd come out, you'd pull your groceries out, and off the car would go. And I think that's what's going to have a bigger impact, is that people are going to start changing how they interact with the grocery store with AI much sooner than just via online.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that's going to really change how grocery is done. AI is going to have an impact, but it's really the logistics and leveraging full self-driving vehicles that I think are going to have the biggest impact.
Yeah. So interesting. And something that in user experience, and certainly there's plenty of insight reports and data out there at this point, but I feel like a modern day disruptor to traditional grocery retail has been all of Uber Eats, DoorDash, Grubhub, all of those platforms where you can get your groceries delivered in 30 minutes or less, hand selected. And I also think too, I just conducted an interview with some folks that have great food service insights, and they have a consultancy on food service, and I think it's really shifting that pendulum where retail has the larger market share. It used to be classically split, and then it's always floated within a couple points. Right now, it's a pretty significant retail is winning in where people are eating as opposed to food service. And I have to think that our accessibility to get groceries and even fully cooked meals from grocers right to our doorstep is a big reason why.
And that's absolutely true. When Kroger recruited me from Amazon in 2017, I had a discussion with their CEO, Rodney McMullen, and he asked me, so what's the big thing we should do? And I said, form a partnership with Cracker Barrel or acquire Cracker Barrel. Oh. And the reason for that is if you can integrate Cracker Barrel across your stores, especially the stores in the South, and even start to expand a Cracker Barrel concept throughout all of your stores, I said, you now become a restaurant, and you become the largest grocer restaurant in the entire United States. And I said, you can then start to become the place where people go for their meals, their restaurant meals that basically now are shipped to their home. And I said, eventually you get rid of the Cracker Barrel concept, but you create this ability within Kroger to make any prepared meal. And that's exactly what's happening today. Other grocery retailers are embracing that. The company Wonder, owned by Mark Laurie in New York, I think he's absolutely going to try and introduce Wonder into many different grocery retailers. But as far as your comment about DoorDash and Uber and Grubhub, 2 years ago, I recommended to Mark Laurie to acquire Grubhub. Mm-hmm. And he did. He ignored it the first year, but then the second year, he bought it. And then he flew me to New York City. And he's like, how did you know I should have bought Grubhub 2 years before I did? And we talked for several hours, and I walked him through how I viewed his company and strategy. So he's making a lot of changes based on that conversation. He's got some cool things he's working on. But I've said to the executives at DoorDash, I said, why are you guys not opening up automated micro-fulfillment centers, and simply large automated customer fulfillment centers? Why don't you acquire the company Ocado, for example, and you outsource? You tell grocery retailers, outsource all of your online grocery fulfillment to me. We'll fulfill all of your orders, and then that opens up your stores to put in larger meat sections, larger fruits and vegetable sections, put in cafes, and they can put in a much more expanded prepared meal capability as well. Totally put the focus on food that you can prepare and sell or come to the store and eat. All of the center store aisle items that never change, the box of Cheerios, and that could all be delivered to your house, or that could all be simply fulfilled from the back of the store and put in your car. And so what I'm really anticipating this year is that DoorDash is going to be doing something like that. I know for a fact that they've reached out to companies I recommended them to to have these discussions. And they try and hide it, but these companies, of course, say, we read your post and you said DoorDash should contact us, and they did. So it's interesting the things that are happening. It's interesting. I think there could be potentially be an acquisition of Instacart. Uber could acquire Instacart. Yeah. I think that could happen. Instacart, I think absolutely is making a big mistake that they aren't also looking at opening up very large automated customer fulfillment centers and micro fulfillment centers to where Instacart says to grocery retailers, time out, stop doing this. Let's get all these center store aisle products out of your store. We'll manage all that for you. And you put the focus on creating a much better store experience where people come in and enjoy the food and they're not looking at boxes of cereal and cans of Campbell's soup. Change the experience completely in that grocery store. And when that happens, which it will, the big disruptor is going to be all of the independents who won't be able to do that. And the regional grocery retailers who probably won't be able to do that. So I anticipate that we're going to see a large number of grocery retailers by 2035 likely to go out of business or be acquired, because it's inconceivable to me that with full self-driving cars, with the robotic solutions we have today, the fact that Walmart has a $5 billion project underway with a company called Symbotic to open up 600 automated micro-fulfillment centers as a test to see about leveraging robotics to do all online fulfillment for them. It's inconceivable to me that we're going to just see grocery retailers keep the exact same store format. If they can leverage automation and offsite, large customer fulfillment centers and micro fulfillment centers to fulfill the order, why wouldn't they pull that non-value added product out of the store and create a much better in-store experience for the customer to where they enjoy the food, and that the store really becomes the restaurant, that the go-to restaurant that prepares meals and can deliver to your home where you can go pick it up.
You've been talking about micro fulfillment on this podcast and certainly through your own platforms for years. And it's amazing how everything obviously continues to progress, and it's becoming something that, if I go back and listen to this episode from like 2018, Brittain, it felt out of reach. And now in my own shopper experience, you know that you're interacting with this technology every day. So it's here, and your insights, I know, are spot on, as they have been year over year. So let's talk about all of the different retailers. This is one of my favorite things from last year's episode. We really just did a hit list of 5 to 10 retailers. We talked through all of them. I don't care how we structure this. We can just go from some of the ones we've already talked about and then pepper in a few others. But any retailers that you think, if you have a list already prepared, or if you want me to say the retailer and you can say their insights, I don't care how we structure it.
So the company we need to recognize for doing a fabulous job is Aldi. I think Aldi does a fabulous job with their fruits and vegetables, their meat. I think they're a fabulous retailer. I've been speaking about them for over 10 years, and I was writing about how aggressive they were. I think in 2010, I wrote that by 2025 to 2026, they'd have probably 3,000 stores. I was wrong. It'll be 2028 before they have 3,000. They should have 3,200 stores by 2028. I was maybe a little too aggressive in terms of when they would achieve that goal. But they're doing a fabulous job. They're opening up 180 stores this year. And so you can't talk about Aldi in the United States without also talking about Lidl US.
Right.
Lidl is Aldi's biggest competitor globally. But in the United States, Lidl entered in 2015. They opened their first stores in 2017. Lidl only operates a total of 200 stores. So they are irrelevant. They're an embarrassment. And I've written multiple articles criticizing them heavily for failing to be an aggressive retailer in the U.S. And so I wrote a post just yesterday when Aldi made the announcement they're opening up 180 stores. They'll have 3,200 stores by 2028. And so I made the argument that really, I believe Lidl is going to exit the U.S. I think they're going to probably leave in 2026, at the end of 2026. Lidl may not call it an exit. They may not officially declare it that way. But for all intents and purposes, I believe Lidl is done in the U.S. as a legitimate retailer. Mm-hmm. You cannot have 200 stores and your competitor will have 3,200. You just can't do that. Mm-hmm. And so I wrote in my post, I said that if the company that owns Lidl, and they're called the Schwarz Group, and they're based in Germany, I said if the Schwarz Group won't invest at a minimum $10 billion in Lidl in the U.S. in 2026, it's inconceivable that Lidl can do anything to affect a positive outcome against Aldi in any way, shape, or form. And so I'm anticipating that Lidl will leave the U.S. In 2025, I did break a story that Lidl was talking to Target about possibly opening up Lidl stores inside Target. I first made that recommendation in 2015 when Lidl first entered. Everybody in Lidl said, that's a dumb idea. We'd never do that. In 2025, they did have discussions with Target, but the discussions didn't go anywhere. I really think Lidl's done a terrible job at selecting CEOs who really know how to grow that company and be competitive and who are aggressive. Although I think a partnership between Lidl and Target makes perfect sense, to where Lidl would open up their grocery stores inside Target to give the customer a really fascinating and interesting grocery concept. The discussions didn't go anywhere. So if there's not a big move of some kind by Lidl this year, I absolutely think Lidl's done in the United States.
You mentioned Publix earlier, so let's talk about some of the regional grocers. Top of mind, Publix, H-E-B, Wegmans, anyone that you'd like to talk about in that format?
So H-E-B remains the best in the entire United States. Yeah. They're a fabulous grocery retailer. When you walk in their stores, I'm like, this is what a store is supposed to look like. They have a great management team. Store managers are fabulous. The associates are fabulous. And they do a great job of choosing really the highest quality fruits and vegetables. They do a great job with all of the proteins that they sell. They're going to continue to do what they're doing. They're expanding. Where I live, there are 3 brand new H-E-Bs within, I think, 4 miles of me. So they're expanding heavily in Texas. They'll never leave Texas. I think they will always keep the majority of their stores here. They have some stores in Mexico, but they're a Texas-bound, Texas-located grocery retailer, and they're going to remain that way, I believe. So I think they're doing a great job. Wegmans is always going to do a great job. A regional grocery retailer that I've always liked, and I always like to speak highly of, is Hy-Vee. Mm-hmm. I think Hy-Vee does a fabulous job. I was born in Iowa, and so when I was a kid and I'd go to a Hy-Vee store, I always thought it was so cool to go look at everything. But Hy-Vee is a really interesting regional grocery retailer. I think Albertsons is in major trouble. I expect Albertsons is going to start divesting stores in 2026. I still believe that Albertsons made a terrible decision to try and merge with Kroger. I was always against the merger. Yeah. I always believed Albertsons should have merged with Ahold Delhaize. Ahold Delhaize is a retailer based on the East Coast. So combining a West Coast retailer with an East Coast retailer made much more sense. I still continue to encourage Albertsons to do that, to try and merge with Ahold Delhaize. If that were to happen, that would drastically change the grocery landscape for many areas. So I think that we're going to see a lot of change in grocery retail. Amazon's an interesting one. Amazon goes on trial for being a monopoly in October 2026. Mm-hmm. So the challenge for Amazon is that although they may like or would want to acquire maybe a grocery retailer or something, I think they're going to be very, very careful when it comes to M&A. I think they're going to be very conservative and not go out. I know that they have talked multiple times internally of acquiring Target and possibly opening Whole Food stores inside Target stores, things like that. But in 2025, they've almost come to the conclusion they're not going to do it. They're going to build their own supercenter store. And I think that's the thing that we should keep an eye on is how aggressive does Amazon become? Because if they open up one supercenter and it works, they can easily open up 100 supercenters and then 1,000.
Yeah, this is recent news, like to where people might not even realize it's coming.
Correct. So in 2025, I think it was January 2025, I broke the story that Amazon was going to build a supercenter in California. That was the original plan. But then the person who was running their grocery at that time, Tony Hoggett, he left and he went to Wonder. So there were no executives inside Amazon picking up that supercenter project. And then finally someone did. And then they changed it from California because of all of the craziness that goes on out there. And they ended up finding some great real estate in Chicago, outside of Chicago, actually. And that's where they're going to open up. It's about a 229,000 square foot supercenter. That's where the Amazon supercenter will be. And then they're opening up another one. They haven't chosen the exact location for this, and that's going to be their Costco and Sam's Club competitor.
Oh, wow.
And so Amazon is going to test a competitor to Costco and Sam's Club. And that's
Yeah.
going to be a fascinating one to watch as well.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk about those club store formats. So Costco obviously just continues to rise in the ranks of everything from consumer favorability to volume sold, stores, everything. But let's talk about Sam's, let's talk about BJ's, any of the club store formats that you want to talk about.
So BJ's is always, they're okay. I actually had done a project for one of their CEOs. And believe it or not, Walmart wanted to acquire BJ's. And it was over 10 years ago. I think about 11 years ago, I did the project for BJ's with their CEO. And Walmart legitimately was looking at acquiring BJ's. And then BJ's just like, well, I don't know if we'd be a good fit for you. It's ready to pull my hair out. I'm like, how do you turn down
Yeah.
being acquired by Walmart to become part of the Sam's Club family? But they did. And although BJ's is doing okay, they're never going to be a major player. And I won't be surprised if a private equity firm buys them, or maybe even an Ahold Delhaize would buy them or something like that. So they're okay. I know they're trying. Sam's Club is improving tremendously. They've really invested a lot in technology. They have some cool things that they're doing. So I have to give them a B plus. They're doing very well. But the leader in the warehouse club is Costco. And the reason why Costco is so smart is that Costco stepped back and said, everybody's using DEI and they're using it the wrong way. It's making everybody angry. Nobody wants to talk about DEI. Nobody wants diversity and equity and inclusion and all that. But what Sam's Club stepped back and said, we want to use DEI so that we can become the go-to place for all of the different ethnic groups that are in America and for the individuals who are immigrating to America. And so Costco said, we want to own the Indian customer, the Pakistani customer, all of the Asian customers. We want to own that. And we want the Hispanic customer. And so they hired people, executives from those ethnic backgrounds. They said, so what do we have to do? And so that's why when you walk into a Costco, especially a Costco where I live in the Prosper Frisco area, we have a large Indian population here. So when you go into a Costco, people from India and all over Pakistan and all other places from the Middle East, and they flock to Costco because it has everything that they want. And Costco has leveraged that strategy brilliantly. And so Costco, frankly, owns that customer base. And so when Costco opens up a store, they already know that store is going to max out on profitability, sales per square foot, because they know exactly what the customer base is going to be there. And they tailor that assortment specific to that region, to that store. And I don't think Sam's Club has done a good enough job of that. I certainly don't think BJ's even understands that concept very well. So Amazon, in order for Amazon to be successful, Amazon's going to have to find a way to create an experience to where the customers who are going to Costco today say, I really love what Amazon is doing. And I frankly think that there are some interesting things that Amazon can do. Number one, I think Costco has made a mistake in not developing their electronics section better. It's like an afterthought in most stores. They sell appliances, but frankly, I think they're just in the way. So I don't think they've done a very good job there. So I think Amazon has some unique strategies that they can look at about saying, this is how we're going to pull the Costco customer and the Sam's Club customer as well. But as a whole, I admire these companies. I respect their executives very much. Even the executives at BJ's, I know they're trying. But yeah, I really like what Costco does, and I really like what Sam's Club is doing.
You know what I like about those remarks you just shared? Most people in grocery retail go straight to like the Kirkland brand, the power of the store brand at Costco. And it's undoubtedly a favorite, trusted brand of consumers everywhere. But what you said is just so much bigger than one brand. And I do think that there might be an overemphasis on store brands. Do you have an opinion on that? I think that people buy where they shop. And if the store brand is what's offered, then that's what's coming home with them. And so some of the data that's out there about, oh, our store brand performed this much SKU growth, and it's like you didn't really give your shoppers a choice. That's the brand that's available, But I love what you just said about Costco, because I see it when I shop there, and some of the employees that I've gotten to know, even some at the executive level, I can piece together those dots, and that is so much bigger. That creates a real cultural connection to people, much more so than any one brand could do.
Absolutely. And the way I describe it, when I write about Costco, I always use this phrase. Costco has a global frame of reference in everything they do.
Yeah.
Costco knows that the globe comes to America. The world comes to America. And so we have people here from all over the world. So Costco says, well, so how do people in India eat? How do people in Pakistan eat? What about Afghanistan? What about Europe? What about Spain? They're here. A lot of people are here. They're either here because they work, or they're students, or they're multi-generational. Their parents immigrated here and now they're here, but they've retained aspects of their culture, including the diet. And so Costco looks at that and says, how do we take advantage of that? How do we meet the needs of those global customers, that international customer base? But as far as Kirkland, what is fascinating about Kirkland's, and I'm amazed that brands fall for this all the time, is Costco will intentionally go out to companies and say, why don't you sell your beef sticks in Costco? They don't wait for the number one selling beef stick brand or something like that, the beef jerky brand. They don't wait for them to come to Costco and say, we'd really like to have you try our brand so we can sell it in your store because we're the number one brand. Costco goes after them and says, we'd love to have you in our store. Whatever you're number one at, Costco wants you in their store. Because what Costco does, and they do it very well, is they will gladly put your brand in its own area, and there's no competition around it at all. It's beef stick, and right next to it is M&Ms or something crazy like that. Yeah. And so people are like, look at these beef sticks. This is my favorite brand. But then very quickly, within just a matter of a month or two, what happens is you have the Kirkland beef stick brand at 30% less right next to the number one selling beef snack stick. And what I'm talking about are those beefs. I don't eat that stuff, but I see it in Costco all the time. And so what I noticed is that over a period of about a month, Kirkland's was nowhere near it. And now, right next to a lot of the major brands, the number one selling brands, there's a Kirkland brand. Or there's the Kirkland brand and a Kirkland product that's 30% less. And I will intentionally watch the customer behavior. And it never fails. 9 out of 10 times, a customer comes by and looks at the number one brand, then looks at the Kirkland brand, and they put the number one brand back and they buy that Kirkland brand because it's 30% less. Yeah. And they trust it. And so that's the thing that makes Kirkland such a dangerous brand, is that they're experts at being able to come out with a category, basically a category killer, that they could put next to any of the leading brands out there. And that Kirkland brands will take sales from them. And that's why Kirkland's, if Kirkland's was its own retailer, it'd be one of the largest grocery retailers in the United States, just if all they sold was Kirkland products.
So good.
And to your point, I'll finish it on private label because you did ask about it. I think private label is incredibly important. But everybody's got private label now. And so
it's not just Trader Joe's. It's not just Kirkland.
It's not just Trader Joe's. Everybody's doing it. And so now the question becomes, they have to start asking what's next. And I believe what's next is what Mark Lohr is working on with Wonder. I've always said to people, Wonder's not a restaurant. Wonder is an AI company. And what Mark Lohr is doing with Wonder is he has a partnership with the company called Oura, the Oura Ring. And he's basically setting up to where people will buy the Oura Ring and they will be integrated into the Wonder platform. They're taking the medical data from Oura. They're taking medical data that customers will provide from their doctor to the Wonder platform. And the Wonder platform personalizes meals for them based 100% on what their body requires. Yeah. And it doesn't require a lot of effort from the customer. You wear a ring. And the Ring is constantly providing data to Wonder's platform. And so I think what's going to be interesting is, what does Wonder do? How do they expand it? I know they're going to cut deals with insurance companies, but I think they're also going to go cut deals with Costco and other retailers to say, leverage our platform. So now you can make the argument that let us prepare the meals you should have. Let us come up with the list of products you should be eating, and then we'll just simply deliver it to you. You won't have to keep coming into our stores. And what is Costco investing in more than anything? Micro fulfillment centers. As I told you in 2018, what happened? Costco is now building new stores with micro fulfillment centers in them. And I believe it's because the goal is by 2030 that grocery becomes lights out, that you simply don't have to worry about shopping anymore. The retailer knows exactly what you need. They're leveraging Wonder to know exactly what you need to the personal level to support your health, to meet your dietary trends. And finally, you have GLP-1, the weight loss drugs, Wegovy, tirzepatide, retatrutide, these other drugs out there. That's absolutely going to become part of a grocery platform, the Wonder platform. And so you're just simply going to start realizing that I no longer have to think about shopping for groceries. My groceries just appear. So this is truly going to happen. Just as I was accurate in 2018 about micro fulfillment, I will bet my life that by 2030, everything I'm saying becomes a reality. This is absolutely going to happen. And so for the grocery retailers who can't think big, who can't make a big move, they're dead.
Not going to make it, right? I mean,
they're not going to make it.
Yeah, it's too competitive and low margin, and they just won't make it.
Correct.
This has been a great conversation, Brittain. We could talk about so many other topics. I will say it's a great time. We've got the new food pyramid. Food as medicine is no longer a movement. People are understanding it. I think that's probably since you and I talked last year. I feel like that's one of the biggest positive changes that we've seen within the whole food and beverage industry, but in particular, obviously, fresh produce is just so much of what's happening in society. The start line and the finish line are right there in the produce department.
And as we talked before the show, there's a certain young lady who I believe, and I'm staring right at her, who I think is going to play a critical role. This is absolutely the moment you've been working towards. This food pyramid change now is putting fruits and vegetables and protein as being the most important option. And the processed foods and the crazy grains that should have never been the focus of the food pyramid in the first place, that's become minimized. And people want fresh food. They want whole foods. They want foods that make them healthy. There's a much bigger focus on fitness now. I work out all the time. I've been working out 6-7 days a week for decades. And a diet has always been fruits, vegetables, protein. I'm the world's most boring eater, but I stay very healthy. And I really think you're going to play a tremendous role in helping companies understand, you know what? I'm the expert here because this is what I've been talking about for almost a decade. You were ahead of the game. And so now that means you get to be the tip of the spear. And I think that's very important for you to understand that. I think this is your moment.
Thank you. What a nice thing for you to say. Thank you, Brittain. I appreciate it. I certainly hope so. And I know that having your support means so much. And this episode and knowing that you believe in what I do, it does help keep me going. So thank you so much for that and for all your support of the Produce Moms. And we look forward to having you on, obviously, for the January episode, but we don't have to wait a whole year before we have you back on, Brittain. This was such a great episode. Thank you again for your time and for being part of the Produce Moms podcast. I'll give you the mic for your goodbye to our audience and to remind folks where they can follow along with your great work.
It's always great to be on the show. The easiest way to follow me is just connect with me on LinkedIn. You can go there. You can read the articles I write. One of the articles that's on my post right now was called Hail to the Chief. And it's an article I wrote about Doug McMillon the day he retired, about why I think he's going to run for president. So I'm more than happy to connect with anyone, but it's always a pleasure to be here, and I'm happy to come back anytime.
Thank you.